Good afternoon, everyone. Howard Gearhauser here with my dad, Dr. G. In today's video, we wanted to talk about the coronavirus, COVID-19. We haven't touched on the topic in about 2 weeks, so we thought it might be a good idea to just chat about the latest. And I know a lot of us are growing out our quarantine hairstyle. We all have these super long sides, unless you cut your own hair. So I'm definitely excited to get this trimmed up, but a lot's happened in the past couple weeks, so we wanted to touch on that. So go ahead and take it away, Dad.
Okay, so the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, has turned into this big controversy, and I'm not going to talk about that, but I saw advertised on one of the social media channels, plandemic, that this is all a conspiracy and it's taken away some of our rights, privacy and freedoms. And I think that's all true. We'll see how it pans out. Things seem to be evolving every day, but I just want to mention a couple things about the virus itself and the treatment for it. So we talked about vitamin C being a potential treatment for the COVID-19. And I wanted to mention the work of Merrick, Dr. Merrick. So Dr. Merrick, somewhere on the East Coast, as a critical care doc, he had a protocol that is used in sepsis that was highly successful in some small studies where he used IV vitamin C and then IV injected corticosteroids that's the steroidal anti-inflammatories like prednisone, but they use methylprednisolone IV. So you use vitamin C, methylprednisolone, and thiamine, one of the B vitamins, and had dramatic improvement in mortality with the cases that he used this in. So he's chimed in on the COVID-19. I just saw this report, and I don't know how long ago it was, but he had said, I guess he didn't take care of a ton of COVID-19 patients. Maybe there weren't that many in the hospital where he was. But he said of the 7 COVID-19 patients that he treated in the ICU, that none of them died. Okay, so we know when a patient goes to the ICU, their mortality risk is very high. And if they get intubated, it's something like 80 to 90% mortality rate. So the fact that not a single one died when he used this protocol early on in their treatment, the IV vitamin C, the thiamine, and the corticosteroid, that he had great results. So Chinese studies have shown the same thing. Other physicians in the United States have said the same thing. So it's funny, Fauci or the CDC or the FDA, none of them will tell you to use vitamin D. So it's strange. And then they, have the expensive antiviral drug, remdesivir or whatever it is. And, Fauci, hey, that's the way to go. That's the way to go. The drug that's expensive and benefits a drug company, that's the one he goes for, even though we have the older generic drugs that a lot of doctors claim works really well. Now, I don't know. I don't know who's right. There's all these conspiracies. But the hydroxychloroquine has been touted by many physicians to work well. And then methylene blue, which is another even older anti-malarial drug. Hydroxychloroquine is an anti-malarial drug. An even older one, methylene blue, potentially could knock out COVID-19. But do they recommend anything that's inexpensive? Like vitamin C is dirt cheap. Corticosteroids are drugs, but they're dirt cheap. Thiamine is dirt cheap. Being in the ICU is not dirt cheap, but the drugs they use, then they want to add the most expensive of all the solutions out there. Fauci vouches for it because of one study showing it's effective, even though there's other studies showing that it's not effective. And there's people coming out now that's saying, hey, wait a minute, putting that as the way to go, the standard of care is crazy, but it's the one that has the financial boom, the American way, let's make $1 off of this patient. It's aggravating, and I could be wrong. It's not like I'm in the trenches. It's not like I'm in the ICU treating patients. I am not. I was in an ICU once, but that was as a patient. So it's not that I'm against ICU doctors. They saved my life. So I'm glad they're there. I'm glad ICUs are there. But it's strange how our system works where they ignore something like vitamin C that's, all the mechanisms of why it would help are there. I've talked about them before, how, it decreases the furins that activate the virus, and it decreases the inflammasomes that are part of our overreaction of our immune system that ultimately is what kills us. And the other new thing I wanted to say about the COVID-19 is there's been reports out that the patients that die, most of them have clots, sometimes all over their body, but especially in their lungs. So another thing that's being used by Dr. Merrick and others is anticoagulants. So, blood thinners. They're using heparin. So heparin almost killed me when I was in the ICU. But if you're dying of clotting, heparin might be a good idea. So everything's about context. Heparin is also something that is not expensive. Typically not. I mean, it's expensive, but it doesn't have a patent on it. It's generic. So it's not like $1,000 a dose like the patented drugs will be that are used in the ICU typically. So that's the other factor that's new that might be critically important, because it might be the most the patients died because of the blood clots. And I talked before how intubating someone was almost like a death sentence, and that it didn't help. Well, if you have blood clots in your lung, being intubated isn't going to change that. So it makes sense that intubation was not that successful because they didn't have the pathology. So how do we have the pathology now? They've done some autopsy studies now. Out of Italy, they reported that most of the patients that died have these blood clots, and that's from the autopsies. And we keep seeing the death rates, going up and down as far as how, they try to improve the classification. They go up and then they go down. So it's going to take a while to sort all this out as to what is really happening. But it's good to see that most states have the businesses online to reopen. I think we have to do that. I think we should have done that. As soon as we knew this wasn't some virus like the Spanish flu in 2018 that was going to take out millions of people, we knew it wasn't that severe. So why are we locking things down? It doesn't make any sense. The other thing is I heard that, to go to Costco now, I have to wear a mask. I ain't wearing no freaking mask. It's like, give me a break. Mask, maybe someone who has COVID-19, put a mask on them, so they don't spread it around the nursing home. And maybe if you're a doctor going from one COVID-19 patient to the other, maybe you should wear a mask so you don't get the virus. But to wear a mask, I see people wearing their masks out in the middle of the desert on a hiking trail. I want to slap them. I'm wearing a mask creates fear in you. It creates hatred. So this is something, don't tell my wife, but my wife, in Arizona, I think they said, we suggest everyone wear a mask when they go in the grocery store. Like I said, Costco is requiring masks. But my wife got pissed off. She wore a mask because she, is a person that follows the rules. She wears a mask, comes home, is pissed off. Okay, why are you so pissed off? There was somebody not wearing a mask in there. It makes us pissed off. We're wearing a mask and they're not because they have common sense. You know, that wearing that mask ain't going to do a darn thing. Just my opinion. I'm not telling you to break any laws.
Well, it looks like
But
you're not going to.
I haven't worn a mask one day, and I will not go into Costco.
Yeah, looks like you're not going to be allowed to go into Costco.
Yeah, I won't go into Costco
until that rule is lifted.
Yeah, I might cancel my membership. I don't think Costco's that great anyway.
Out here, it's the same thing. You know, masks required to go in anywhere, not just Costco, any indoor place. So I just have opted out of going in to any indoor place. But, you know, there's a lot that's come from this situation, and there's so many different storylines. It's impossible to sort out all of the different agendas and the, you know, people taking advantage of the opportunity. It's a mess. So I don't think even trying to sort that out is necessarily important. But what I do think is interesting is how you've mentioned there's been a lot of treatments out there that seem viable. And the fact that the CDC and Fauci and whatever, they're not even exploring it and just ignoring it, seems like, well, they're clearly have a conflict of interest going on. Because if their motivation was to save as many lives as possible and to get this disease under control, it would seem like you would try anything at that point. But to disregard things that are cheap and, you know, aren't patentable doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and does make you question. So, you know, it's exciting that things will start to reopen. We've talked about before in the past too, how the social distancing, how if it worked, the, you know, COVID-19 wouldn't spread like wildfire. So now we're kind of in that position where it's like, well, was that necessary in the first place? We are questioning. We predicted that we would be questioning if the numbers did flatten out. So it'll be interesting to kind of see come fall if there's a resurgence of the COVID-19, to see if we shut things down again or if we keep things fully operational. And that'll be kind of the test against what we did the first time. So be interesting to see how this all plays out over the summer. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea to start prepping, have 2 years worth of food in your bunker, live out in the woods with a giant garden, and have a couple of guns so you can, you know, shoot some wild animals as they walk by for food if the food supply runs out.
Yep, go start working on that bunker. All right, guys, I think that's it for this one. Just wanted to fill you in on our thoughts. Please share yours in the comments below, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, Dad.
Thanks.